I'm Michael Fox, and this is the Prospector News Podcast. And I have joining me today the President and CEO of the Association of Mineral Exploration of the Province of British Columbia, Keerit Jutla. Welcome, Keerit.
Hi, good morning.
It's good to have you back on. We tried several times, but things didn't, and the planets didn't line up. The last time I had you on, I had to corner you off in good old London, England, and we did this face to face. We were in the same place at the same time at Roundup and again at PDAC, but our respective appointment calendars just simply would not align to allow us to be in the precise same place at the same time, even though we're in the general same place at the same time.
Exactly. You're too popular of a guy, my friend. So I think now we're gonna have to get a schedule of all the different conferences and lock in appointments here because yeah, it's always fantastic talking to you and you always really enjoy it and you're so knowledgeable on all these issues that it's always a pleasure to chat and yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you today and many times more in the future.
Yeah, me as well. I think actually the last time we kind of saw each other was like a Far Sight cartoon. I was going up the escalator and you were going down the escalator,
Yeah.
and we said, "Hey, we need to talk," and that was about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it was at PDAC going up and down the escalators, and I think everyone around said, "Oh, look, I guess those guys are making some big mining deal. Look at them. They're yelling at each other, talking about meeting up." So yeah, it was it's always fun doing a few of those things. But I'm glad we are here.
I am as well. There's been a lot to talk about since we met in London back in December. Let's start with your own event. Roundup happened in Vancouver at the end of January. It was a very successful show, very busy, as I alluded to the fact that we couldn't get each other together in the same place at the same time. What were your takeaways from your event in January?
The roundup was fantastic. It was my first roundup as president CEO. I've attended before, but it truly was this time really understanding how important and how amazing of an event this is. Especially if exploring value and just truly harnessing in that ethos of discovery and exploration and not only from a technical and minerals perspective but for new ideas and new ways of doing things and new dialogues. So the conversations that were had there were amazing. There was over 6,200 people who attended from 41 different countries. So it was just a huge success, and we're really looking forward now already to 2025. I think our panel discussions were great. We had a really strong Indigenous leadership presence as well, technical presence. So we're really looking forward to 2025.
Yeah, what I like about Roundup is all the stakeholders get together in the same place, and you do see meaningful conversations that are going on amongst people that might not otherwise ever be in the same room together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those key things is about having those conversations, breaking down barriers and breaking down false perceptions. So, for example, we had a great conversation series of inspiring conversations just to bring different people, different viewpoints together to have that open discussion. So, I had a discussion with I think it's Nikki School, I believe her name is, but she's from an ENGO, and we had a good, poignant and sometimes a pointed conversation about the industry. But I think there was good common ground found, and I think the realization that look, there are a lot of false perceptions that need to be broken down on all areas, right? And I think that's what we are continuing to see and continue to push forward in that regard.
Yeah. Well, you guys weren't done with the conference for very long before government kind of decided it might be a good time to throw a wrench into the gears and threw you a curveball. There was an announcement the week after Roundup that the government had unilaterally decided to modernize the Mineral Tenure Act of British Columbia. And of course, you folks objected vehemently, and the government backed down with tail between the legs a few days after that. What was all that about?
Sure. And so sorry, that one was the Land Act amendments.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was the Mineral Tenure Act modernization, and I believe also the Land Act are so those are items that the government has outlined in the Declaration Action Plan as like as items that are pursuant to, that plan. But I mean, to your point is, after Roundup, we just started seeing emails coming in saying that the government is now going to implement Land Act amendments, and we were never engaged with it. Other industry groups weren't engaged with it. I mean, to our knowledge, nobody was really engaged on it, and we just saw this come out into the press and then into the media. So when we started looking into, well, what exactly is this, and what are the implications here, is it was effectively amendments that would change the way land use decisions would be made in BC, and for who the final decision maker would be with respect to land use decisions. The discussions in and around all these things, that's what we want to be a part of as a stakeholder, and as British Columbians, is to have these conversations on how or what government is contemplating to do very early and very transparently. That's the only way that we can provide feedback, innovative solutions, and even implications on, hey, this is what you're proposing, but it's going to have these different impacts. So when these amendments came out, I think everyone was a little bit shocked and concerned and worried, because it was a major thing. So yeah, we put out a press release saying that we weren't engaged on this. We're going to follow up with the minister and the ministry on this, and yeah, it led to some big meetings and a lot of conversations, and the government decided that yes, they're not going to move forward with it. And I think, which we appreciated, acknowledged that yeah, they didn't approach this one the right way. There was a little bit of leaping without looking on it, and that it's really important that I think thorough conversations happen with it, right? We were asking, look, you're proposing these amendments. How are decisions being made? Who makes the final decision on the land base? Is it how is statutory decision making operating pursuant to constitutional legal standards and administrative legal standards? Like, we wanted to know the how, and when we didn't hear that how was ironed out, that was a concern. So this is a message that we always continuously say to government is, listen, like, that we can develop the best policy and we can build a strong natural resource economy in BC, but it's going to require all stakeholders to have proactive engagement and meaningful engagement with the government in order for us to do it right. So any and all policy legislative items that come out, they come out with full clarity and an understanding on how it's going to work and benefit everyone, instead of it coming out silently or it coming out with a lot of question marks. That leads to like anxiety, and it leads to concerns for all parties, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, and that's not something that we want to see. So what I'm really happy about now is, groups like AME working directly with Indigenous leadership on looking at, okay, there's a lot of policy question marks here, but how can we work together to start building, good relationships and projects to move forward, and at least there's some type of silver lining here. But yeah, so the Land Act amendments were put on hold, but there's, as you know, lots of other policy and legislative items that are being proposed and being put through in advance of election time.
Yeah, well, there is an election, so that does have a tendency to put government under pressure to rush things out the door. And unfortunately, when you have bad policy, that ends up in legislation that creates conflict, and conflict creates litigation, and litigation, and that tends to create not only uncertainty, but it also increases timelines for projects to actually happen. And none of this was going to be good for any of the stakeholders that require the mining under its guise. Now, all of this has comes out of two areas in my eyes. It's one is the government's desire to move forward with the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights, or UDRIP, or UNDRIP as it's referred to colloquially by an acronym, and the modernization of the Mineral Tenures Act, which we spoke about off mic, was established, you said, in 1912. So we're talking about an act that's 112 years old, and last time I checked my history books, a lot has happened in those 112 years that would suggest that we probably should be taking a look at this with new eyes. So is that what this new initiative that you have with your First Nations partners about? Is it about modernizing everything to the way the world is in 2024 versus the way it was in 1912?
Yeah, the original Mineral Tenure Act came out in 1912, but since then there have been a number of rounds of revisions to it to keep it updated, as the times change. I think the latest one, or the latest iteration, maybe was 2004. But yeah, to your point, is the legislation itself, the birth of it is over 100 years old. It's seen on many facelifts since then. But the key question then, with respect to the Mineral Tenure Act, is it was an item that was identified and prioritized by the government in their declaration action plan for modernization pursuant to the UNDRIP and DRIPA principles. So the key question that came out of the court case that happened between the Gitgala and Hadasat and the province was, is the Mineral Tenure Act constitutional? And is there a duty to consult Indigenous peoples with when you're claim staking? So the court said, no, the Mineral Tenure Act is not unconstitutional. It is constitutional. And then the court also said yes, there should be a duty to consult applied by the Chief Gold Commissioner with respect to making online claim staking. So that's where we're at right now. And the judge said, listen, industry, nations, government, you all have 18 months to get together and build a new mineral tenure online system. Right. So that's where the ticking clock was applied, was on the MTO. And simultaneously, we still have to modernize the entire Mineral Tenure Act. So where things are right now is the nations appealed the case, and the government entered into discussions and settlement discussions with Gitgala and Hadasat on these items. And look, one of the things I want to also say is both nations are interested in mineral exploration and mining, and want to be engaged in natural resource development. But where things sit right now is, the government met with the nations and they had a for lack of a better term, a settlement, but it didn't really settle the whole case. And originally we were told, hey, these were going to be interim measures. And then when the orders in council came out, we realized, wait a minute, these aren't fully interim. There's some permanent items to it. And that the government used what's called a LUA order to basically say that there's not going to be any staking in their traditional territories, which is an unusual law to use, but it was still used. So our key questions that came out of it was, one, are these interim orders? Two, is this a precedent that's going to be set across the province? And three, what's the province's response going to be if other nations in the next month want the same thing? And we were told that no, that the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, so Emily, is not going to be applying any more LUA orders in the province. But that doesn't mean other ministries will or will not, right? And where things sit right now is now we're at 12 months. We have to develop a new MTO staking system that has a consultation standard. So where we sit at AME is saying, okay, there's a consultation standard. The duty to consult is proportional to the activity. So, whether it's a notification letter that goes out to impacted nations or a requirement for nations and claim stakers to meet and to build a relationship before doing non-invasive exploration, let's figure out how that system works. But what we continuously relay to the government is, look, we hope that you're not grouping everything into just this process, because MTO and MTA is just one gear in the entire machine of going from the birth of a idea to a mine. So that's where we're at now. The BC government is engaging in their own Mineral Tenure Act engagement now with stakeholders. AME and other industry groups have relayed the importance of our organizations and stakeholders being at the main table to discuss this with the province and with First Nations Leadership Council, because this is at the heart of what our members do, right? It's really integral and important, and there's a lot of people whose livelihoods are tied into it, and they have a right here with respect to how they explore. And we haven't got a response back from the government about if we're going to be at that table or not. So instead of waiting for it, AME is doing our own engagement process to ensure that all of our members are engaged thoroughly. There's meaningful engagement, and that we'll be able to develop a what we heard report with feedback, recommendations, solutions, and implications that we'll submit to the government in June and to the public. So for any AME members who are listening, please stay tuned, as we're going to be doing our first engagement session at the KEG conference next week. But that's kind of like an update of where things are at right now, Michael. Is there's a lot of things going on. And to your earlier point, Land Act amendments kind of came out leaping without looking. They put a pause on that. But I think that process has now created a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in the province, just about the certainty by which government is doing meaningful, thorough policy discussion and policy development. And while we wait for that, AME is going to just continue to work with our Indigenous partners and with BCers to build policy and to build things that work for everyone.
Yeah, everybody's got to have a seat at the table. Indigenous leaders, when I speak with them, and I get to speak with a lot, because we have the Aboriginal mining section within our scope of publication, I hear the same thing. They don't want just a seat at the table. They want to be actively engaged. They want to participate in the opportunities, and they want to profit from them. And I don't see this as being any different from that, but it starts with putting everybody in the same room and engaging, so that everyone understands everybody's position. Whether you agree to the position or not, you at least need to understand where everyone's coming from. And what I found shocking with the report as I saw it was that government just kind of threw a dart at a dartboard and said, I think this is what people want.
That's a good question for the government, and Minister Osborne Cullen and the Premier. But yes, every time that policy comes out or a process comes out that doesn't have that clarity and certainty on process, and also on how it integrates feedback, concerns, and has and is delivered in a balanced way that benefits everyone. Absolutely, there's concerns for everyone there. AME, we really champion and encourage really early engagement between our members and indigenous groups, right? Like, look, like I think one of the key things for folks to understand is you know that the indigenous peoples and nations here in BC, to exactly to your point, it's just want to have more of that seat at the table with respect to getting economic benefit from major projects, right? And I think this is the key thing that we keep trying to relay to the government and other people who are critical of the Mineral Tenure Act or this online staking system is you can only have great equity deals and economic benefits for nations and for BCers that happen in projects when you actually develop the project. So you can't have a mine that you could potentially have a great equity deal in if you don't have a streamlined exploration process. So I think the government's understanding more that, look, there's non-invasive exploration, right? When you get a claim, and then if you want to drill, you need a notice of work permit, which is very comprehensive here in BC. And then if a mine is to be developed, and there's an even more thorough regulatory process. So now the key question, Michael, is who do you have the conversation with for permission for all these different activities? When do you have to have that conversation, and at what depth? And I think what we are recognizing is, listen, if there's a lot of uncertainty coming from government on these, we just want to work directly and look to work directly with Indigenous leadership and nations on, look, we want to work, and there's a strong good neighbor principle and working together with respect. How do we do that? And I think what we're seeing now is that strong resonance and response saying, yeah, let's see how we can figure this out together and work together on this.
The online staking program. This is a curiosity question because I'm not a prospector. I've never used the platform. But if I were to stake a claim in British Columbia, does the online staking platform tell me on which nation's land I'm staking the claim on? That would be a good starting point for people to know who they need to be talking with.
Absolutely, yeah. So the current system does have a letter that's sent out to those who have a non-invasive exploration claim there, saying here are the different nations that you should talk to, right? And now here's the key thing, and now this is where the law is changing: is it does notify and let those folks know about whose traditional territory the area is on. And now the court said, now there needs to be some type of mechanism that says, hey, you must talk to those nations in some way, i.e. that consultation when you explore, right? So, and I think there's lots of ways that can happen, and AME is already connecting our members who have questions about doing that, saying, listen, we'll help you build a relationship or set up a meeting with you and that nation to build that relationship, right? Because look, it's totally reasonable for any group to say, listen, I'm not looking for to throw major wrenches in here, but if someone's coming into my backyard, I just want them to come and introduce themselves, say hello, provide that kind of that kind of respect, and we can do that and do that work together, right? Like I've heard Indigenous leadership saying, yeah, we just want to know that there is a respect and appreciation and that kind of understanding of a good neighbor. And, we can help folks even go and non-invasively explore in the land, collect traditional Indigenous knowledge while there's other exploration going on. And then when you start developing a relationship like that, it facilitates the stronger economic benefits that could accrue later on in the process. So yeah, those are different types of models we're looking to start building and expand out. But I think what's really clear here, and this is where things get confusing and things are getting nuanced in the discussion, and where UNDRIP and DRIPA tie in, is do you need to have full consent before you even start exploring or staking a claim? Or can you still stake a claim pursuant to the Mineral Tenure Act system and then still be able to explore and do it in a way that protects intellectual property? So what a lot of folks don't really understand, and I was surprised with a lot of the conversations I've had with some high profile folks, is they don't understand what actually occurs when you stake a claim. And perhaps maybe it's the language about the claim or a staking or whatever language we use, but there's a lot of misinformation for folks assuming that when you stake a claim online, it means you now have a right to that land and everything with it and it's yours. No, what you have permission to do is to do non-invasive exploration and on that land base. So where things are at right now and what we've said to the government is, listen, when someone does stakes a claim, they're doing a lot of research, on geological data, and they're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So when they do that, they're effectively proclaiming there could be something of value here that I want to go explore to see if it is likely that there is something of value here or there are minerals here. And that type of process we need to make sure is still competitive, still is streamlined, is timely. It allows entrepreneurs and explorers to do that work, but done in a way that respects Indigenous rights. But that process can't be super onerous, or you can't effectively negotiate a full treaty or an impact benefit agreement before you even know what's on that land base or could be even under that land. So that's where I'm happy we're making some more progress in actually educating folks in government and other stakeholders, saying this is how the process actually works. We're all on the same page here. We've been champions for Indigenous reconciliation and respect long before even government, provincial or federal governments were providing capacity funding to nations here. It was industry that was providing that support and economic benefits, right? So now we just want to make sure that the system that is developed by the experts who have been in that field, and that's folks in the industry and Indigenous peoples. And now the key question is, will the government kind of recognize that and let us work together to build a system that works for everyone?
Now, is the process itself an actual issue with the staking process, or is it like I'm hearing that this may actually be a communications issue where people aren't talking, or if they are talking, they're not speaking the same language,
Right.
so that they understand each other. Which is it? Is it, or is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, look, there's two key big processes that are going on in the province right now. One is around the whole concept of land use planning and decisions on the land base. And then there are other items that are more, legal decision making processes in nature. So for example, the Mineral Tenure Act and online staking are mechanisms, and it's a law that governs how people start non-invasively explore on the land, right? So that's just one piece of it. And land use planning, or and then for lack of a better term, we can say that is something that is being done and worked on by Minister Osborne's ministry, right? Now you have Minister Cullen's ministry with respect to land use planning. And that work then informs who makes decisions on how land is going to be used and what type of decisions and what is the nature of those decisions. So it's almost akin to saying, like, listen, the MTA and the MTO process is like developing, tires on a car. And we can develop the best tires on the car, but if from the land use side there's no engine, or there's no clarity on how that engine is going to be built, well, then that car is not going to go anywhere. So for everyone in the industry is looking at it, well, we need to know and have certainty on the land base in terms of what land is available to what crown land is available to explore. What are the rules about how you explore those lands? Who you need to ask for permission to do that? Is it the BC government? Is it Indigenous governments? Is it both? And what is the process by which those decisions are made? So look, I think in any type of situation here is who's the landlord, right? And who you're going to ask for permission for it. And right now, if the question is around, well, it's Indigenous governments, well, then our members are just going to now start working directly with Indigenous governments and start making deals and building solid relationships there. And that's happening. But if you're the BC government, it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. Here is, you can either have a system that works or one that is onerous. So that's kind of where things are at here. Is it is a communications issue tied with a kind of like a building an airplane while you're flying it scenario, in that there isn't certainty on the land base right now. We've seen that with how the Land Act amendments were introduced without engagement and then put on pause. A lot of the different land use decisions that are occurring with respect to LUA orders and no registration reserves. So everyone is asking those same questions like, hey, this seems a little bit archaic and random. What areas can we explore in? What are the go zones? And what areas can't we explore in? And are decisions being made pursuant to constitutional law and administrative law or not? And when we don't get those answers back from the government, or those answers are kind of vague, it has a concern. So clearly, yes, there's a big communications issue here. There's a big thoroughness of analysis here. And our message continues to be, look, the more transparent you have all stakeholders involved in building those policies and legislation, including industry, the better we can build them. The more information we can provide, the more solutions we can even provide, and the more implications we can put on the radar so that we mitigate. Because at the end of the day, we have to build processes that are benefiting everyone. Like, this isn't a zero-sum game where things have to be taken away and given to any other group. It's about how do we expand the pie and how do we build a natural resource economy that works for everybody here. And we might need to go slower before we can go faster. And we hope that that's a message the government understands based on the facts of what have happened in the past 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, you keep talking about certainty. When one part of this equation that always wants to see certainty is the investment community. They generally like to see some degree of certainty to know where it's safe to put their money. Is this process, is that having any effect on the desirability of British Columbia to invest in as a mining jurisdiction?
When you and I both, where we had our first wonderful meeting was in London, right, at Resourcing Tomorrow. And I think one of the key things I heard in London, and you probably heard as well, is our Western allies looking to Canada and BC for a geopolitical need to secure a critical minerals value chain. And the urgency of that, it was quite evident in Europe that we may not be appreciating here in Canada. So there is a desire and a will to start investing in BC and Canada even more. But yes, there is an impact in that capital markets investment in BC when there is uncertainty on the land base and uncertainty in the regulatory regime. We are still seeing investment, occur. And I think some of the latest numbers with respect to investment still seem quite promising. But what we have to keep in mind and what we let the government know is you can't take just today's investment numbers and say, well, that's indicative of everything we're doing. It must mean we're doing everything right. And investment's going to keep skyrocketing down the road. It requires regulatory certainty to have that comfort for sustainable and long-term investment in British Columbia. So what key things are needed for that is you need a clear regulatory regime. You need to know who's making the decisions and how. You need to have certainty with respect to permitting timelines, and that those timelines are streamlined and reduced. So BC is making great progress on reducing permitting timelines, but at the same time introducing or trying to introduce regulations that could also then just extend those permitting timelines, right? So it's that, that double-edged sword there. There is, we're seeing, both federal governments and provincial governments introduce new tax laws with respect to environmental sustainability or carbon taxes, while at the same time removing tax exploration benefits that or exemptions that would go to explorers. So if you're an investor and you're a proponent and you see, okay, well, now there's regulatory uncertainty here on how decisions are made, and there's another tax burden here with respect to carbon taxing, and there's different exploration tax expenditures that are being reduced. You kind of think, how viable is it here? Now, my sense from the investment community is that, look, because there's such great potential here in British Columbia, and there are private actors from industry and nations who are coming together to start, bringing certainty and making deals, that investment is sustainable and still coming in. But those are kind of question marks that we can't just leave to hope and chance, right? Like, we need to be able to build that certain process, certain regulatory regime, and support for explorers and nations now if we're going to do that. So we've positive signs, as we have seen, Minister Osborne and the ministry put in $24 million in a critical mineral strategy, which will go to reducing permitting timelines and supporting regional offices. We've seen the government now commit to a First Nations equity fund, which I think is the first investment is $10 million with the goal of having it at $1 billion in 5 years. All of those things are great, but those question marks still remain: is, okay, well, what happens in between? What supports will still be there for explorers? What regulatory certainty will still be there for explorers? What regulatory certainty will still be there on Crown lands? How does that intersect with what the government is proposing with respect to Indigenous decision making? Those are still a lot of questions, right? So as we approach election time, yes, there's a lot of great numbers that are coming out, but how do we actually get to those numbers? You can put a bunch of money into saying we're gonna invest in this big battery plant, and that's fantastic. But how are you going to actually get the critical minerals to that plant, to actually produce those batteries? Is it going to come from BC? If so, are you going to have a regulatory regime that facilitates those minerals getting to that battery plant? Those are then the questions that are left unanswered.
And is government aware of the need for urgency in the matter and the importance of getting it right?
That's a really good question for government. I think, based on the conversations that I've been having, and I think conversations that have been coming directly to AME, I hope that urgency is there. But look, we met recently this week with the Consul General of Ireland, Kathy Keerit, and wonderful person. And AME has developed now a partnership with the Consul General of Ireland, specifically on that matter with respect to securing and prioritizing critical minerals and critical mineral value chain. We're meeting with many other consulates as well now. So look, the urgency is there, and now the key question is answering that call, right? So it's been fantastic hearing the conversations about how great BC is, and the commitment to reconciliation and the understanding that from AME anyway, that look, we need to develop a strong critical minerals value chain here, and we're going to keep building those partnerships and those relationships to do what we can to address all of these different issues from both national and international stakeholders.
Wonderful. Well, we've seen the ground starting to move in British Columbia towards a new modernized process. If people want to follow this story through you folks, how would they get in touch with you and follow that story?
Sure. So for AME members, we send our policy updates pretty regularly, including how the AME's MTA engagement schedule is going to look like. So if you're a member, you'll be getting emails there. You can also go on our website, amebc.ca, that has updates there. You can go on LinkedIn, on both my LinkedIn of Keerit Jutla or on AME's, and we have the updates there as well on key policy items and schedules for MTA engagement. And you can at any time contact AME through info@amebc.ca. we're all in this together, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, BCers, Canadians, internationally. We're really optimistic about our ability to all work together, and AME is going to continue to do what we can to keep driving that engagement with all parties together to get to the future we want to get to.
Wonderful. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that future holds. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you again in the very near future.
Wonderful. You too, my friend.
Thank you. The Prospector News podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and are not to be taken as investment advice. Listeners need to do their own due diligence and seek advice of a licensed investment advisor.